Did Ukraine just crack Moscow's air shield with $480,000? Tonight, 50 low-cost drones run a gauntlet of S400s and TOR M2s, and still 3 transformers at Shatura go down in a fireball. Stay with me, we'll map the staged assault, show how decoys forced $35 million in Interceptor launches, and why that final FPV swarm turned a tactical win for Russia into a strategic grid crisis with a 500 megawatt shortfall and freezing suburbs. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. They didn't win the sky, they gamed the system that guards it. The plan moved in 3 acts, and every move leaned on cost, timing, and human decision pressure. First wave, LUT decoys, programmed to look like a mix of threats, crawled in low using folds in the terrain and urban clutter to stay under long-range search thresholds. The aim wasn't a hit, it was a beep on the right screens at the right moment, forcing crews to treat them as live. That triggers the next domino. S400 batteries shift from search to engagement, 92 N6E fire control radars lock, and the missile trucks start bleeding inventory fast. Once those high-end tubes leave the rails, the equation tilts. The S400 partnership of surveillance and the 92 N6E can track small targets, but not without trade-offs. Low flyers that pop up for a few seconds into the killbox force short windows and rushed ID calls. A decoy that climbs just enough to look committed will pull an Interceptor priced like a luxury car, while the decoy itself costs about a scooter. Multiply that by a volley of 30, and the ledger starts screaming. Crews don't see price tags, they see range gates and closure rates. That's the engineering weakness the attackers leaned on. Mid-layer, TOR M2 batteries and point guns take the volume. TOR excels at swatting close-in targets when its data links are clean. But with dozens of returns blending and bouncing through overlapping cells, filters struggle to rank which track matters. Terrain masking and coordinated pop-ups stress the network even more. When multiple LUTs show similar Doppler and cross-section, operators hedge, fire, and then fire again. When the first shots miss or decoys split, guns add smoke and noise, but at high clutter, they chase ghosts between buildings and tree lines, and that's before the final wave even shows. Timing did the rest. The attackers staggered ingress, so defenders had to pick a lane, then switch. Several decoys stayed low, others popped into the engagement envelope in short bursts, and a few rode in the seams between sectors to force handoffs. Every handoff risks a lost track or a misprioritized queue, and that's where the second act closed. High-priced missiles were gone, reload crews were busy, and the mid-layer stacks were processing more tracks than Doctrine likes. That's when the finishers arrived. The third act brought the FPVS-20, were held back from the start and launched only after the first 2 layers spent big. FPVS don't need a perfect radar picture, they need a path through the last kilometer and a stable control link. Operators used short hop relays to keep latency tight, keeping the nose steady as they threaded wire runs and pylons. In that range band, automated guns lag a human eye on a direct feed, and jammers that blind a remote can't scrub a pilot who has already memorized the yard layout from previous passes. Why the grid? Transformers are the worst thing to lose and the easiest big thing to break. They sit in open air, filled with oil, and their cores cook under sustained stress. A shaped charge doesn't need to shatter the casing, it needs to tear and start a fault that lights the oil. Even if the relay trips, a burning yard is gone, and replacements take weeks to months to source and install. 10 drones missing is noise. 2 drones that land on the right fins turn into a city-scale problem. By the time the math settled, about 30 LUTs drew fire and confusion, while 20 FPVs saved their punch for the end. The result was a money pit, roughly $35 million worth of interceptors fired against a fraction of that in airframes. That waste was the point. The last 500 meters belonged to small, quiet machines and operators who only needed seconds of clean control to end a transformer's life. The Fortress did its job and still lost the lane that mattered most, because once the radar stops dictating the fight, the target set starts dictating the outcome. The scoreline looked good for Moscow until the last minutes. The final FPV wave did not chase kills in the open, it tightened into the yard. Operators kept dispersion wide on approach to split sights and jammers, then pulled the threads together in the final run. So 3 airframes converged on 3 separate transformers at Shatura. Each pilot flew the feed from chest rigs through low latency links, using preloaded waypoints only as scaffolding. The real steering happened close, under the wires and past the gantries, where one wrong twitch means a pole strike and a dead drone. Decoys didn't stop with the first waves either. A few cheap frames looped on the perimeter to hold sensors outward, while the finishers slipped inward. Defenders still hit plenty. Shooters scored clean clips on several FPVS as they crossed the outer fence, and a few more in the alley between bus bars. That didn't change the math. The handful that survived picked their spots, and that's where the night shifted from tactical to strategic. A strike on a tank is a headline, a strike on a transformer rewrites a schedule. You could see it in the feeds. A nose dips, the crosshair steadies on the radiator fins, and the frame jolts as the shaped charge arms. Then the screen goes white. Inside the yard, the fight becomes a timing game. FPV control lives and dies on latency, and these crews kept delays low with short hop relays staged behind cover, handing the signal forward like a baton. Jamming hit hard in blocks, but narrow beam antennas and frequency shifts punched holes through the fog, long enough for final aim. Automated guns struggle at that range because their tracking algorithms need more stable cues than a darting quad at 10 meters. A human eye staring at a live feed can ride the last curve and commit into the gap between steel and ceramic. On impact, a small copper-lined cone focuses blast into a narrow jet. It doesn't need to crater the shell, it only needs to pierce and start a fault path. Hot oil vaporizes, arcs form, and contact with oxygen invites flame. Protective relays read the fault and trip breakers by design, but they don't fight fire or save insulation soaked in burning oil. Once a radiator tank vents and ignites, the yard becomes a hazardous scene that crews cannot safely enter fast enough to stop the spread. One unit down stresses neighbors, and the cascades begin. The downstream effects hit faster than the repair trucks. A 500 megawatt shortfall translates to rolling outages across several districts, trains idling on sidings, and dispatchers rewriting timetables by hand. Heating plants on the edge lose pumps or control circuits, and apartment blocks feel it within hours. Comms nodes tied to those grids fall back to backup power, burn fuel, and drop non-essential services to stay alive. That rhythm breaks municipal response cycles too. Traffic control slows, water systems shift to low power modes, and the city's margin for error shrinks. Behind the power loss sat a message. Talks stalled, offers were waved off, and external backers signaled more kits and parts would flow. Ukraine didn't say it quietly. If the front stalls, the grid becomes leverage. Each hit is less about a blast than about time, because replacement transformers can't be pulled off a shelf. They take weeks to ship, cranes to place, and a stable window to energize. So why did the S400 fail at the end? Because it fired on the front end. Early launches burned cache and emptied rails. Mid-layer filters chased too many lookalikes, and the last 500 meters went to a platform that costs less than the fuel in a single interceptor. The defender counted kills, the attacker counted minutes until a breaker yard went dark. That is where cost curves take over the battle, and where the next move is set by who can wait out the repairs rather than who can claim the most downed airframes.